Samantha Black, Editor-in-Chief of ScienceBoard, and today we're thrilled to be with Dr. Alessandra Cesano, who is Board of Directors at SITC and Faculty of Women in Cancer Immunotherapy Leadership Institute. We're so excited for her to be joining us. Let's get started.
But this one is the one that will go on tomorrow, the last day actually of the meeting, and this what we call hot topic. And so SITC each year identify a topic that essentially has been like, you know, I would not say not fully controversial, but definitely something that got a lot of attention by the field. And I think after a series of discussion, this year there was an event, if you want, that got a lot of attention by everybody that is involved in the immunotherapy, and that is there was an ODAC committee in April. That ODAC is, you know, the oncology committee that inform or advise essentially the agency. So the FDA essentially get this group of experts and essentially ask a particular question. And the topic was very relevant to the immunotherapy because it was really part of an evaluation that FDA is doing of the accelerated approval process. And that is a fantastic, I would say, regulatory way of getting drugs that are promising to the patients much early on. And while the confirmatory activity and benefits of the drug is still evaluated. And so essentially the process has an approval that is accelerated approval based on known surrogate marker of activity, and then follow usually requires that the company have a confirmatory study that use standard endpoints like overall survival or quality of life. And when you have positive data on that, the accelerated approval is actually converted in full approval. So immuno-oncology had a lot of drugs that they were approved under accelerated accelerated approval process. And that was really relating to the fact that there is amazing activity for a subset of patients. And so at the level of the patient, this therapy can be transformative. Can be actually, even in late stage, becoming life or death. However, the issue is that when it's a subset of patients. So when then you try to confirm that by using a patient population in a randomized trial in which you are looking at different endpoints, like survival, and you use a median, if who benefits is only a subset, you don't see evidence of that at the level of the median. So what happened is we have a lot of these drugs approved under accelerated approval in which the confirmatory studies that usually are done in a different patient population were actually negative. And so the question was, should we leave the drug approved for those indications, or should we, following the law, the regulation, remove them from the market? And I think the fact that there was a discussion is clear that everybody believes that, in fact, these drugs are active. But again, they are active for a subset of patients. And so really, what we thought was an important hot topic, independently of the outcome of this ODAC meeting. So we are not interested in talking about the particular drugs, but much more taking a higher view to the process and actually say, is the accelerated approval process, the way that is designed today, actually works for immunotherapy drug? That they have this particular characteristic in which you have the benefits is at the tail of the curve, the survival curve, as we call it. You don't see it at the level of the median, but the drug is active. So essentially the question is, should we change the way in which we do confirmatory study for drug, or in a way of using different endpoints? How you capture the benefits in the tail? Or another way of doing, how can you identify upfront this patient population? So focus on biomarkers so that you can have the right population, and then the percentage of people that will respond is higher. That's happening in targeted therapy, like what we do today with TKI inhibitor. We actually select the patient with the mutation, we give the drug, and the response rate is higher. In immuno-oncology, it's not that we have not tried to find biomarker, but it's much more complex because it's not just the immune system, it's the immune system with the tumor, with the host, that they are converging to that. So we thought that that was a great point for discussion for this year, and actually really looking at what the ODAC told us, and that's why we invited different people, that they are the stakeholder of this. And so we have the FDA, we have the people from the committee, we have industry, because they are at the receiving end of that, and we thought that that was an important way of having a discussion and then a panel in which, at the end of the day, we can only solve this problem by working together. That's one of the reasons why I like SITC, because SITC, difference of, and I am a member of a lot of other, oncology groups, but I think SITC really is a very inclusive society. So it's a society that actually understands the problem cannot be solved by just the science, for instance, but you need all the stakeholders at the table, because science is where everything starts, but the patient is where everything ends. And to translate the science to the patient is a process that requires different competencies, different people, in terms of really regulators and patients, and everybody essentially around the table. And so a lot of science today, we don't lack science, in my opinion. What we lack is translation to the patient. If you look at the pipeline of things that the science makes coming up, and you look how many reach the patient, there is a big way to go there. And so then the question is, what are we losing in this translation? Why we don't have more of that? And why it takes so long? And in that optic, I think that COVID taught us that when we identify a problem that we think is a problem of everybody, the whole world in this particular case is a pandemic, we can do much better than we are doing, in my opinion, otherwise. Because essentially you can see people collaborating, you can see FDA, you can see the industry, you can see the academia, you can see the patient. So they all come together, and what really they show, that we have the technology today, if we have the will to actually working together in a much more pre-competitive space, and everybody waiting their part, you can actually do a miracle that today we are here. We can actually be at the meeting in person because of what was learned in the mRNA vaccine really were born in oncology, and when essentially there was a need to move them in there, they were just like the technology was there, the will of the people, the money, the company, everybody put the interest of solving this problem first. And we could do it fast. And so I'm saying cancer is an emergency too. It's an oncology, is something that we have more patients dying of cancer than probably we have of COVID, but we don't have the same perspective that is an emergency. And so that's what I think we learned from COVID, and I think is a silver lining from what happened. And I wish that we keep some of this urgency, some of also of the learning of working together to actually reach something of that nature. Yeah, so as I say, I don't think that nowadays we lack the tools, and we are asking the right question. We know more, and by knowing more, we know more what we don't know. And now we have the tools, so we generate a lot of data, as I say. I'm sorry to talk about the challenges, so I'm very excited about the fact that a lot of the questions can be answered by different disciplines. So, one of the things that SITC is very good in doing is actually to ask other disciplines to be part of solving the problems. For instance, engineering. A lot of the problems that we have, like looking at the tumor microenvironment, of building new molecules that essentially can do a new biology. The field of synthetic biology is what really passions me, because it's creating something that evolution didn't put there. And we are trying to create new molecules that essentially can bypass some of the limitation of nature, if you want to call it today, or some of the way in which the tumor tries to escape and so on. That is a fantastic field. It's a field that but we solve it by engineering. As a synthetic biology is an engineering kind of thing. So you are thinking about the problem, or say how I can put two cells together, how I can do it through new proteins. They do not exist, or they are not. So all this is, in my opinion, is fascinating, because it's essentially will allow us to move forward. We don't have to lose sight, in my opinion, of how are we going to make this moving toward the regulatory process and having money funding this and really translate it in a drug. And of course, new things create new challenges, because in particular from a regulatory point of view, for instance, because you've never been there, the regulations are something that tend to repeat, and so here the regulatory science has to evolve at the same time as the science evolves from producing these things. So what I'm looking for is being sure that these things don't stay in the science part, but they really move. And really, I would like to see more of that done faster, and more data sharing. Meaning today, generating data is not the issue. Transforming data in information and in knowledge is. We have a lot of repetition, because everybody works a little bit on a silos part. So having more pre-competitive initiative, data sharing, like putting the data there and allow people with questions to interrogate them, that is where we will go faster, instead of trying to repeat the thing and the same errors. So that's where I'm excited that also that part of science, the science of transforming data in information and in knowledge, and the applicability, the actionability of this knowledge, so that patient can benefit. That's what excites me. So beside the science part, just by itself, that could be a long kind of project, but I definitely, one passion project in the context of SITC is definitely the one of that was started by our ex-president. There was also the first woman president, Lisa Butterfield, was the president before Patrick Yu, the current president. She actually thought about the importance of, I would say, mentoring and the women part of the organization. And because if you think about it, we have a lot of women at the level of member, but when you go up to the leadership, it's just like everybody else. So so she actually thought about to create an institute inside the SITC in which we, the women that are part of the leadership, essentially give time to cultivate and the new generation, the young generation, and giving them the tools, not only from a scientific point of view, that can be given by the society, but really the leadership tool, the tools that are important for them to develop in their career by actually identifying what are the issues, and none more than us women know what they are, and essentially providing a forum that is online so they can access, but also with a meeting that is happening each year. Is a 2-day meeting in which women that in very different space, because science now is not just one thing. So they are coming from academia, they are coming from industry in different positions to solve the problem. They essentially spend time and with a group of women, and it's a very competitive kind of program because people have to apply and say why and what they are looking for, and we have to screen, and we want to have a small group because it's better the interaction and the networking. Usually we have it in August, and last year we had it 2 just to accommodate more because we could do it virtually. And essentially we are going through questions like, how to say no, how to balance, career versus family. What are the specific issues that you find just by being a woman in science, knowing that it's not just the bias of the outside world, it's also an internal bias, I would say. As I say, we are much more soft-spoken, we are much more concerned about hurting feeling of others, and so it's really a very comprehensive program. Also how to negotiate, they are not really a university for that. Particularly if you are not in industry, big company, they tend to have some classes for their leadership in some of, but they are not women oriented. They are just more as a leader, and usually they are attended by a lot of men. And I have to say the program is usually more on that side than not. So that's seeing the new generation of women coming with their passion and their idea, and being able to help them, as I say, not just to find a postdoc position or but really to build together all what is needed to be successful in what they do. That's great. And so all the credits to Lisa. And I have the privilege of being part of the faculty, and usually I tend to bring my career experience that is actually moving from academia to industry in drug development, big company, small company, the capability of growing not just vertically, as in a career sometimes people think, like vertically meaning, I don't know, from directors in the, really moving lateral and essentially getting a view that is broader than just the one in which you started with. So.
That is wonderful and very inspiring. So thank you for your service as a female in science. Thank you very much. Alessandra, thank you. This has been lovely. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Sounds terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.